Hey, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome. My name is Maddie, and today I'll be sharing my TBR for the Monster-A-Thon and the Contemporary-A-Thon. I'm finally doing it again. I am making a TBR, a monthly TBR. I haven't made one in so long because I haven't read anything since April, but lately I've had this desire to read. I just really want to read. I miss reading. It used to be something that was so relaxing and just therapeutic for me, and I just miss it so much. So this month I'm really going to try to get some books in and knock them off my TBR pile, as well as participate in some readathons because I believe those will really help me and encourage me to get some reading done. So I'm going to share my TBR for both of these readathons, and my TBR for these readathons will count for my TBR for September because I'm mainly just going to focus on reading these books this month. So let's start with the Monster-A-Thon. It is a month-long readathon, and the theme of it is to read spooky sort of books and books that match the challenges, of course. So speaking of challenges, I'm going to mention the challenges I'm going to do as well as the books that I plan to read that go along with them. So the first challenge is Classic Creepers. Read a book with a classic horror creature. And for this one, I chose Dinner with a Vampire by Abigail Gibbs. I read a sample chapter of this book in a book collection that had a sample of a few chapters from various authors, and when I came across this one, I really liked the first, second, and third chapter. I think I read the first 3 chapters, actually. It has vampires in it, and it's kind of an urban fantasy, and it's perfect for this challenge because vampires are classic horror creatures. I mean, one of the most popular classic monsters is Dracula, so it's perfect. So I'm really excited to read this book. It's the first in a series, and we'll see if I like the first book enough to continue on with this series, but I'm going to give the first book a try first. The next challenge is What Big Eyes You Have. Read a book that's over 400 pages. So I picked out Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This book is just over 400 pages. I think it's like 450 something. Yeah, 450 so pages. So it is perfect. I've put this book on many a TBR, still have not gotten to it. I've owned this book since it came out in, I think it came out in 2016. It's just been sitting on my shelf for 3 years now. At this point, I need to read it, or I just need to unhaul it if I'm not going to read it anytime soon. And I'm really excited to read this one because it is not a Cinderella. It is an Alice in Wonderland retelling. I don't know why I couldn't think. But it follows the Red Queen, so it's like a villain origin story. So I've heard mixed things about this one. Some good things, some bad. So I'm a little nervous going into it, but I have heard some people do like it. So we'll just see how it goes. Next challenge is Chimera. Read a book that falls under multiple genres. So for this one, I chose White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first book in a series. And this book involves demons and gargoyles, and it's like a romance that happens between 2 of these different species. And I've been having this book on my radar for so long just because Jennifer L. Armentrout is my favorite author, so I'm trying to get through all of her books, and there's still so many books by her that I have not gotten to yet, so I really want to try this one out. I count it as a multi-genre book because it is a supernatural, paranormal, urban fantasy, so it can count as a contemporary read, so it can have a lot of genres in it. So it's perfect for this challenge, and I'm excited to finally start it. Next challenge is Unsightly. Read a manga that has to do with monsters, or a graphic novel, but I'm going with a manga because I read a lot more manga than graphic novels. So the one I chose is Vampire Knight. I watched this anime long time ago. This is one of the first anime I had ever watched, so it's pretty sentimental in that way. I have never read the manga, but I've always been intrigued to, and since this series has vampires in it, it's perfect. So I'm probably going to give it a try so that I can complete this challenge. Next one is Angry Mob. Read a book that was recommended to you by more than one person. So for this one, I went off of books that I constantly hear on BookTube that are very well praised and recommended. And one book that I always hear about on BookTube, even though it came out like 3 years ago, it still gets brought up a lot, and that is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I love Colleen Hoover. She's one of my favorite authors, and this is a book that I have yet to read by her, and I've heard so many praises for this book, so much so that I'm really eager to pick it up. So I'm gonna give it a try because it'll complete this challenge since it's constantly being recommended by booktubers, so it's perfect. Next one is a fun one. It is Sacrifices, and your goal is to read a book that you've seen in an unhaul. So for this one, I had to watch a unhaul video, so I just search for book unhauls on YouTube, and I came across one of Chelsea Darling Reed's unhauls, and one book that was in her unhaul video was Made You Up by Francesca Zappia. I've had this book on my TBR for a while, and I've mentioned it in some TBR videos, but have not gotten to it. But since I saw it in her unhaul video, I'm like, yeah, that's perfect for this challenge. I'll just read that, hopefully. I've heard mixed things about it. I have heard that the representation in it isn't really that accurate. It deals with a girl who has schizophrenia, which is actually a disorder that is really sad, but really intrigues me. It's like a disorder that I really enjoy learning about because it's really interesting. So I've been wanting to read a book that has that representation, but I'm going into this one with pretty low expectations just because I heard the representation in it isn't all that accurate, but it still intrigues me, so I'm going to give it a try for this challenge. And the last challenge is one that goes with my team. So in this readathon, you're separated into teams, which is really cool. It makes it a lot more competitive, and sometimes I like those kinds of readathons. So my team's challenge is to read a book with aliens. I don't know if that was what the challenge was called. Read a book with aliens or something else. I cannot remember. I just wrote down aliens because I picked a book that has to do with aliens. So the book that I picked is The Darkest Star by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which is a book that I have already read, but I want to reread it because the second book in this series I think comes out next month, if I remember correctly. So I want to reread this one again so I can refresh my memory on what happened in it so I can prepare myself for the second book. I love this book. It was a 5 out of 5 star read for me. I'm super excited to read it again and get back into this world. It's going to be a good time. Oh, I skipped over a challenge. I was like, I think I remember I put one more book on this TBR. Now I know why I didn't mention it because I skipped over a challenge. So why don't we just get to that one and mention it. So this challenge is Real Monsters, and your goal is to read a book with monstrous humans. So I am going with a novella from the Dark Element series. The first book is White Hot Kiss, which I already mentioned, and it is called Bittersweet Love. This one is a little over 100 pages since it's a novella, and it's perfect for this challenge because it has humans in it that are also monsters because they're gargoyles and demons, but they take on human forms. So I counted it for this one. And although I have not read the first book yet, I am still going to put this one on the TBR because I have a feeling I'll like the first book because I love Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I'm 99.9% sure I will continue on with this series. That is it for the Monster-A-thon. Now let's move on to one of my favorite readathons ever. I'm so glad I came back to reading just in time for this readathon that happens at the end of September, and that is the Contemporary-A-thon. This is a readathon that I have participated in before, and I love it. So let's go over the challenges. The first one is to read a 2019 release. I chose Maybe This Time by Casey West. This book came out in July, and I have yet to read it. Casey West is probably my favorite young adult contemporary writer. She just writes so much fluff in her books that I just eat up, so I'm really excited to read her newest release, and I hope it'll be great. Next challenge is to read a book with yellow on the cover, so I chose The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is another book that came out in 2019, so it can count to read a book that was released in 2019, so I can also complete 2 challenges with this one. And I've heard a lot about this book. I have read Christina Lauren's Beautiful Bastard series, which I really enjoyed. It is such a guilty pleasure series for me, and I've heard a lot of good things about this one. It sounds really interesting. It is a enemies to lovers romance, which is one of my favorite tropes, so I'm excited to read it. The next one is to read a diverse contemporary, and for this one, I am going back to Made You Up by Francesca Zappia. I can also count it for this challenge since it deals with a mental illness that isn't brought up often, so I would count it as diverse. Next challenge is to read a book that has an illustrated cover, and I chose The Bride Test by Helen Huang. I read, why can I not remember the name? The Kiss Quotient by this author. Could not remember it. I read it at the beginning of the year, so it's been a while. And I love that book. It was a 5 out of 5 star read, and The Bride Test takes place in the same universe world. It's a spin-off to that book and follows different characters from the first book. So it sounds really good. It came out such a long time ago and I have not read it yet, but I've been really eager to. And the next one is to read a dark or hard-hitting contemporary. So I picked out Bad Romance by Heather Demetrios. This book has abuse in it, so that is a very dark and hard-hitting topic. And from what I remember, the abuse is not glorified, but it's used to teach a lesson on how abuse is really bad and toxic in a relationship, which that kind of message is really important to get across because abuse in a relationship happens and it's something that no one should ever have to go through. So I really want to read this book just to see how great or good the representation is. Hopefully it'll be great, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. Next challenge is to read a book with plants on the cover, and for this one I'm also counting It Ends With Us to complete this challenge because the cover has a flower on it. I think it's like a pinkish flower that is next to a broken vase, I think. I don't have the book with me, so I can't say for sure. But I think though, so it's like the flowers spattered on the ground. I don't know, it doesn't matter what it looks like. All I know is that there's a flower on it. So it can also count for this challenge. The last challenge is to read a contemporary book that is well loved by a member in the book community, which is a great challenge. I think this one is so clever. And for this one, I'm doubling up and I'm going to count The Honeymooners for it. Or not The Honeymooners, The Unhoneymooners. I just, minutes before filming this, watched a favorite books of all time video because I forgot to fill out the book for this challenge, so I had to scramble and look for someone's favorite books. So I just went on YouTube and searched up favorite books of all time, and I came across a recent video by Gabby Reads where she shared some of her favorite books of all time, and this book was on it. And it was perfect because I already counted this book for another challenge on this readathon, so I'm like, I'll just double up for that one because The Unhoneymooners is one of her favorite books, so it was perfect. And again, really excited to read this one. So those are my books that I really want to read for these readathons. I have checked some of these books out from the library and I'm going to go pick them up sometime this week, and I have 2 books on these readathons that I own, but most of them are coming from the library. So I need to go to the library as soon as possible. So that was my TBR for the month of September. I am going to try to read as much as I can this month, but obviously I'm not going to get to all these books because, especially if I'm still in this reading slump, it's going to be hard. But I will try my best to get to as many as possible. If you guys have read these books, let me know if you like them. Let me know your thoughts on them, and I would love to know. Hopefully that'll encourage me to read them even more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below for more bookish related videos and anime videos, and I'll be back really soon. Bye!